Okay, today we're going to talk about 4-4 number 1 notes. 4-4 is going to be about adding and subtracting rational expressions. But we're going to split this into, like I said, because it was part 1, we're going to split it into a couple days. So the first part, what we're going to do is we're going to work on just finding the LCM. If you don't remember, LCM stands for least common multiple. Okay, or some people like to think of it as being a common denominator. Like if these were the items that were in the denominator, before you could add or subtract the fractions, you must have the denominators look exactly the same. So they must have a common denominator. So that's the part we're going to practice. And to help us do that, we are going to continue using GCF and factoring. Okay, so let's look at A. We have two parts on this one. You'll notice that they're separated by a comma. So if I look at the first part, which here I'm going to underline, first thing I check for is, does it have a GCF? And in this problem, it does not. And then I have to decide what kind of factoring it has to do. And this one starts with a 1x squared, so we could do fast factoring. So what multiplies for a negative 20 that adds for a negative 1? And hopefully everybody says, oh, a negative 5 and a positive 4. Okay, then I'm going to go to the next set. I'll underline in a different color. No GCF, and then fast factoring because it starts with a 1x squared. So what multiplies for 8 that adds for 6? And hopefully everybody says, oh, x plus 4 and x plus 2. Now, once you have broke everything down, then what I do is I look for any component that is shared between my two different parts. So between my goldish yellow color and my purple color, is there anything that's exactly the same? And hopefully everybody says, oh, look at these two parentheses right here, x plus 4 and x plus 4. Those are shared between the two sets. And anything that is shared, you only have to write it down once because it's already on both sides. You don't write it down twice. You only write it down one time if it is shared. So our LCM, I'm going to write x plus 4 down once because it's shared. And then you must also include things that are not shared. So then that would be x minus 5 and also x plus 2. So if these two parts were on the bottom of fractions, then the LCM would be my least common denominator. And that's all we're doing. So LCM, these two parentheses, done. And then when we take the next set of notes, then we'll add on to this and we'll actually go with, okay, now what do you do to add and subtract them? Right now, we're just figuring out what would the bottom of the fractions have to look like. All right, so let's keep rolling. So the next problem, I'm going to underline it over here. Does it have a GCF? And hopefully you say yes. They both have an X. So let's take an X out. And if I take an X out, I'm left with X minus 2. Okay. Next part. Does not have a GCF. Starts with a 1. So we could do fast factoring. What multiplies for a negative 4 and adds for 0 since there's no middle x? And that would be x minus 2 and x plus 2. Then look for what's shared. And then hopefully everybody notices, oh, x minus 2 is shared. So that means I only have to write it down one time. And then let's include what's not shared, which is an x and also an x plus 2. Now, when I write these three things down, does it matter what order I write them in? Could I have put x plus 2 first, then x minus 2 and x last? Well, yes, you could. Okay, it doesn't matter the order, it just matters that you have those three items listed. Okay, and then I'm going to let you try C. So pause the video, try C, and see how far you get. Okay, I have my answer for C there. So take a look at it. Hopefully you factored each one correctly. You do fast factoring, and then you'll notice the part they have shared. And then I also wrote down what they don't have shared. Okay, let's keep going then. So on the next one, I'm going to do fast factoring. So multiply for positive 25 that adds for negative 10. Well, that would be a minus 5 and a minus 5. Four terms. Oh, what do we do if we have four terms? We make a box and put them straight inside of it. So make yourself a box. Take the four terms and put them on the inside. Okay, then I like to look up and down. And the only thing they have in common up and down is an x. Then switch over to multiplication. So that would be x squared. That would be 5 on the top. And that would be negative 25 on the side. So x plus 5 and x squared minus 25. Okay, don't stop here because hopefully you've noticed that the second parenthesis says x squared minus 25. That can break down even more. Okay, so what multiplies for negative 25 that adds for 0? So keep your first parentheses. So multiplies for negative 25 that adds for 0 is a positive 5 and also a negative 5. Okay, now I broke everything down as far. So what's shared? So an x minus 5 and an x minus 5 is shared. So I'm going to write that down one time. So the ones I circled, I'm only going to write one of those down. And then we have to write down everything that's not shared. And do you notice that there happens to be another x minus 5 right here that I can't say is shared because there's only one on the other one, not two? So I have to include x minus 5 again for this third one over here I underlined. And then I have to include two of these over here, which are x plus 5 and x plus 5. So the reason I made this one up is I wanted you to realize that the x minus 5s, there are 3 of them all together. You get to circle one from each set and write it down once, but then you do have that leftover one that you still have to include. And of course, on the last one, we're going to start with a GCF, and finally we get to say, yes, this problem has a GCF. So I would say each number is divisible by 3. So I'm going to take out a 3. That gives me 2x squared. Oh no, plus, sorry, I thought I had to erase something there. 7x, and then plus 3. But that doesn't get me to 1x squared. That leaves me at 2x squared. So we are going to have to do the long factoring on this one. So make yourself the x. 2 times 3 is 6. And the middle is 7. So multiplies for 6, that adds for 7. Well, that would be 6 and 1. So now I'm going to make myself a little box over here. Put my a term in, then 6x, 1x, and then my c term. If I look up and down, the only thing they have in common is x. And then switch to multiplying, so 2x, 3, and 1. Okay, remember to keep your GCF number, which is a 3. And then we have parentheses x plus 3 and 2x plus 1. Okay. Then if I go over to the other set, it has a GCF. And the GCF is just the letter x. Doesn't have a number, but they both have an x, so we can take out an x. So parentheses, sorry, x plus 3. Okay, so they have an x plus 3 and an x plus 3 shared. So in my final answer, write x plus 3 only once. Then what's not shared is a 3. Hold on, my pen's not working. Sorry. Then we also have a 2x plus 1. And we also have an x. And once again, I don't care what order you write it. You just need to make sure that you would have all of these parts listed. And that's it for part 1.